Hey YouTube, what's up? Welcome back. This is the third video in a series where I start my own tech company and scale it from $0 of income to a billion-dollar tech unicorn startup. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, I just want to update you on the current status of the project. I think I showed what I was working on last week, maybe not. But I just wanted to share the updates that I've got so far. I've made a couple different UI changes and also some backend changes as well. So this is the current UI of the application. Again, it's a Pomodoro sort of time tracking productivity application. You can see I've gotten rid of the whole state of Pomodoro and timers and everything on the left-hand side. And there are 3 new additions to the UI. So here at the top, we've got mana, which is the total number, I guess it's the total amount of work that you can do in a day. Then I have my timer. This is the development mode of my project. So these are 5-second timers. In the production version, these will be 25-minute timers and then 5-minute breaks. And then I have a level and experienced. So your level is calculated based off of your experience, and your experience will increment each time you successfully complete a Pomodoro. And this is the production version of the application. No real difference. You can see that my experience is 0, but that doesn't mean I'm not using this. I have been trying to use this week to track my own time and switch over from the old Pomodoro application I was using. But for some reason, the experience calculation is bugged in the production version, but it's working properly in the development version. So that's a bug that I need to sort out. It's on my board. I have a feeling it relates to RLS security issues, row level security issues, and I just did a video about row level security and how it's super fun and I love it so much. But I think that this is probably a symptom of that, and I'll have to go in and fix it. But this is what I've got so far, and that's essentially what it is. I would love to make some improvements, but I just wanted to update on what I've done so far. And the biggest problem I've encountered so far in this is figuring out how to limit the amount of Pomodoros that a user can complete per day. Because this is a bit of a game to it, you have experience to level up. I wanted to prevent people from gamifying the system too much, or gaming the system, I should say. I don't want them to open like 12 tabs and have 12 different timers open. I want to make sure that if there's already a timer running, they can't start another timer. And there's only so many timers that they can run per day to keep everything mostly fair for everybody. So I guess I'll start there. So there's mana per day, that you get 12 every day. Those are the amount of Pomodoros that you can do. And the way that we're calculating that, to dive into the code a bit, is I'm using this function that I wrote called count daily Pomodoros, and then we're basically subtracting the number of Pomodoros that a user has completed per day against a constant for amount of Pomodoros that they're allowed to complete every day, which is 12. So that number that you see on the front end is 12 minus the number of daily Pomodoros that they've completed. And the way that I did that, working with dates and times in JavaScript is super fun. You know this if you're a JavaScript engineer. I'm creating a new date, and then I'm saying, creating a new constant here on line 42, I'm saying today is equal to that date to ISO string. And the way an ISO string works is that it starts out with month, date, year, I believe, or maybe it's year, month, day, doesn't really matter, but the first 10 digits are the actual date. And then it has a T to signify the start of the time, and I've zeroed that out. So basically, on line 42, we're creating a variable called today, and that is just today from the date sequence with a time of midnight. And then we're querying Supabase for everything in our Pomodoros table, and we're selecting everything that was completed at and is greater than or equal to today. So when a Pomodoro gets completed, we're marking the exact time it gets completed, and everything that has been completed today should be returned. my error messaging here is not ideal. I have a ticket on my board to go in and clean up the way that I'm handling errors for a lot of these. Actually, I think this one might be okay, but in other ones, yeah, like line 66, 65, actually here, in my fetch user experience function, you can see I'm checking for data and returning it, and otherwise throwing an error. I like this syntax a lot better of if there's an error, return the error. Otherwise, we're always going to be returning the count. So I guess I'll take you through the rest of the functions that I've written so far as well. So we have a count daily Pomodoros function, which I mentioned is sort of the base of how I'm calculating how many Pomodoros a user is able to complete per day. I have a fetch user experience function that I'm calling on page load in order to get the user's experience. And we're also using it within our increment user experience function because we need to know what the previous amount of experience is and then add one to it. So you can see that's here, it starts on line 72. We're getting the previous experience, awaiting the fetch user experience call. And then once we get that back, we're going to await Supabase from our users table and update our experience based off of our previous experience by 1, where our ID is equal to our user ID. And again, you can see here on line 83, I'm checking for if there is data, I'm returning it. I'm going to flip this at some point in the future, and I'll say if there's an error, I'll throw an error. Otherwise, we should always be returning our data. Our fetch user level function is very similar to our fetch user experience function. It's an async function that's going to take in our user object and await the Supabase users table. We're just going to select the level on our users table where the ID is equal to our user ID. So this should always only return like one user since we're taking in a specific user ID. And a very similar fashion, line here 106, we can increment that user level by 1, kind of in the same pattern that we're doing fetch user experience, increment user experience. We're fetch user level and increment user level as well. So then we have this function, which is a syntax I've learned recently called maybe increase level. And this is essentially what's going to determine whether or not we should be increasing our level. So every time a user increments their experience, we need to check for whether or not we should be increasing their level as well. So that's what this function will be called every time a user increments their experience. And selectively, it will call the increment user level function based on a constant that I've created here, which is the experience chart. And that basically relates the amount of experience to different levels, and it scales logarithmically as you increase in level. So basically, going from level 9 to 10 will take a lot more experience, total experience, than going from, say, level 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. I have my start Pomodoro function here, which is been around for a while. A cancel Pomodoro function, or if a user wants to quit out of the current Pomodoro, or if they close the web page or something, this is something that should be automatically called. And then we have my complete Pomodoro function, which is also a little bit complicated. So this is the other of the two main things I sort of wanted to share and how I've managed to figure this stuff out. So I want to complete a Pomodoro, but only want to complete that Pomodoro when the timer is within a certain threshold. So I am updating the Pomodoro's table, and then if that completed at time is within the expected threshold of 25 minutes, then and only then we're incrementing the user experience. So this might also be a source of the bug on the production version of the app, and it's something that I probably should leave these console logs in here. So the Pomo diff is the completed at time versus the created at time, and we're getting that here. We're just calculating new dates. I probably don't need to calculate a new date every single time. There's definitely ways to optimize this function, and if you as a viewer see anything in here that can be cleaned up, please leave me a comment and let me know what can be cleaned up, because I certainly need it. But that's all the new functions that I've written so far. That is reflected in the current state of the UI. This probably isn't a super long video, but I just wanted to share the progress that I have made so far. And if you enjoy it, I don't know, leave me a thumbs up or something, leave me a comment, let me know that you're following along. And I'm gonna get back to building. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.